You know what I love just as much as video games and mozzarella sticks on a Friday afternoon? Pro wrestling. I had no idea where to even begin on this topic for this channel, but I'm finally pulling the trigger. It is with this game that brought upon my love of professional wrestling in the first place. That's right, SmackDown 2 Know Your Role for the PlayStation 1 was my first exposure to the world of wrestling, and it caught me with a fisherman suplex, hook, line, and sinker. When I played this game for the first time, the Attitude Era was already coming to a close, as WWE was on the verge of unleashing ruthless aggression onto the masses. For those of you who watch my channel and aren't caught up in the wrestling bubble, I'll do my best to explain certain terminology. I'll provide a quick summation of the different eras mentioned previously. The Ruthless Aggression era of WWE was spearheaded by then future legends such as John Cena, Randy Orton, Brock Lesnar, and Drax the Destroyer himself, Batista. SmackDown 2 Know Your Role released midway through the Attitude Era, which is a sacred era for any longtime fan of professional wrestling. The Attitude Era is aptly named, as the WWE begun a massive shift towards edgier content that matched the then cultural zeitgeist led by shows like Beavis and Butthead and South Park, for example. Although I would miss watching the Attitude Era when it was on TV, I would catch the tail end of it and come to understand its importance in this game. Although the names didn't mean much to me when I first played it, coming back to it now as a huge WWE fan gave me such a newfound appreciation for it all. The roster is ridiculously f***ing stacked, with some of the most recognizable names in pro wrestling history. The Brahma Bull himself, The Rock, shares the cover with the likes of current WWE COO Triple H, The Undertaker and his American Badass persona, and Y2J, aka Chris Jericho. The game was passed down to me from a friend of the family, and my life was forever transformed by my newfound love of sports entertainment. SmackDown 2 Know Your Role was developed by Yuke's and published by THQ. The former, who by this point were known for their line of New Japan Pro Wrestling games, of which one was released here in the States as Power Move Pro Wrestling for the PlayStation 1. It wasn't until the release of WWF SmackDown where Yuke's would grace our PS1s with the star power held by WWE. Although not nearly as beloved as the Aki Engine titles such as WWF WrestleMania 2000 or WWF No Mercy, the SmackDown titles were worthy successors indeed. SmackDown 2 Know Your Role would release only mere months apart from the first game and served as the final WWE game released on the platform, as the PS2 generation was off and running by the time it came out. Now, did SmackDown 2 prove to be a proper send-off for the PS1? Hit that turnbuckle, strike a pose, hell, even crack open a cold one, and find out it's SmackDown 2 Know Your Role for the PlayStation 1. This should be a slobber knocker. As a gaming YouTuber who covers mostly niche topics regarding retro video games I grew up with, it's rare for me to not have a game I grew up with in my rotation at least once every year or so, but that was not the case for SmackDown 2. A large reason for that was my love of pro wrestling just fell off after a while. It would come to a screeching halt at some time around 2011 or so. The big nail in the coffin for me was Shawn Michaels' retirement match at WrestleMania 26. It was the end of an era for wrestling fans such as myself that had grown up watching the Heartbreak Kid, Sweet Chin Music fools left and right on many a Monday night after school. HBK's absence left such a hole in my heart, as he was my favorite wrestler growing up. Come 2023, I would review AEW Fight Forever for this website Noob Feed that I write for from time to time, and ever since I played that game, my love of pro wrestling came back with a vengeance. And it wasn't because that game was great. Honestly, AEW Fight Forever has a lot of hang-ups with it, but it was a decent time for fans of the Aki Engine titles, such as the WCW games like WCW vs NWO and World Tour. But the thing was, I didn't really know about AEW's talent at the time. I had heard about CM Punk's return because how could you have missed that back in 2021? Even if you were a former fan, you at least heard rumblings of CM Punk's return to pro wrestling. But it was through my research of AEW talent that I kept watching matches over and over just to, at least know what I was talking about when describing the wrestlers that were in AEW Fight Forever. It's been over 20 years since I last played SmackDown 2, and yet here I am again grinning ear to ear and getting chills as good old JR's voice hits me the second the game boots up.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is proof anything can happen in the World Wrestling Federation.
Indeed, JR, anything can happen inside the World Wrestling Federation, or at least it felt that way with the plethora of new gameplay features. Seriously, SmackDown 2 is bursting at the seams with match types, an expanded create a wrestler mode, and many different superstars to choose from. I didn't realize how good we had it back then because this roster comprises mostly some of the best talent from back in the late 90s and early 2000s, and even pro wrestling period. Although this game released before the WCW buyout, talent was starting to bleed from there as a result of mistreatment and favoritism from members of the NWO. You had newly signed talent like the Radicals, comprised of Eddie Guerrero, Dean Malenko, Perry Saturn, and a certain Canadian crippler. This is a game you could still come back to and get lost for hours like I was when filming content for the video. There was a simple elegance to some of these earlier wrestling games that is lost in translation with the 2K releases of today. Although fun games in their own right, it doesn't have that magical appeal of wrestling games of yesteryear. It was a simplicity that was unmatched. Within a matter of moments, you'll be hitting a 3D with the Dudley Boys in no time. After a couple of quick exhibition matches, I decided to check out the season mode as I rarely bothered with that as a kid. I'm not gonna lie. Heading into SmackDown 2 season mode was a bit jarring after the ones I'm used to in the later SmackDown series. There's limited appeal for this mode, honestly, unless you want to see the world's shortest promos once in a blue moon. The PS1 certainly could have handled a bit more fleshed out season mode, but alas, it was nowhere to be found in this game. Season mode made you sit through what felt like half the locker room of CPUs fighting it out before your match finally rolled around on Raw or SmackDown. I hope you packed an iron will of endurance because you will need it. A time waster for sure, but your time is better spent in SmackDown 2's many other fun aspects. One of my personal favorites was the Create a Wrestler. Boy, was it awesome then and still cool to check out today. With plenty of unlockables, you can really let your freak flag fly with the many customizable parts and different attributes to fine-tune your wrestlers to meet your standards. As you can see, Dickman goes for well, not sure what I was going for with Dickman here, but he is an unstoppable force and truly the world's first important Grand Slam champion. Even with the PlayStation 1 sunsetting soon and a new bucket of bolts on the horizon, Ukes really went above and beyond in this entry's Create a Wrestler mode and beyond. Big, small, fat, and tall, SmackDown 2 has it all. Creative pursuits don't stop there either, as you're able to create your own pay-per-view, tag teams, managers, and much more. Again, I could care less for these modes as a kid, but I find it cool now developing your own dream card for this game's who's who of a roster. With so many incredible wrestlers to choose from, I had fun creating my must-see matches that I could then play out, especially with the amount of match types offered, and boy did they up the ante with the match types this time around. I love me some table matches. Oh, the chaos that would ensue. It's hilarious how easily you could just hoist these giant tables around like they were made of cardboard. Actually knocking someone out with one took forever. Realistic? Not one bit. Hilarious? You bet your ass. And honestly, that jank is just part of the charm. Take the casket match for instance. You literally just beat the snot out of someone until they just fall into the ring. No struggle animation or anything. It's just cartoon logic at its best, honestly. Backroom brawls were another standout, as you could fight in a bar to a boiler room. Nothing was off limits. It was ahead of its time for sure to be able to go beyond the ring, where logic and reasoning go out the window faster and you could reach a 3 count. This goes without saying, but the graphics don't exactly scream photorealistic, but that's forgotten about as the chaos of the match unfolds. Before the bell dings, you are treated to some low poly perfection as wrestlers make their entrance in spectacular PS1 fashion. Kudos to Ukes getting the Titantrons behind the wrestler as they make their way to the ring. Some wrestlers recycle the same walking animation, while your upper card wrestlers have extra special care to detail in their entrances, such as Rock hitting the eyebrow with his fist up, looking up towards the ceiling, or Stone Cold Steve Austin coming out with his usual shit talking and double fists as he hits the turnbuckle. As Neanderthalic as these look now, these entrances are largely responsible for my love of my favorite wrestlers now, especially with the Hardy Boys. The first time I heard Loaded, i.e. the Hardy Boys theme song, it melted my fucking brain. The way they ran to the non-existent ring as us kids were fed those filthy guitar riffs was nothing short of enchanting. Can't forget Jeff Hardy throwing his hands up and down for good measure. I made it this far into the video and haven't even talked about the main gameplay itself yet. SmackDown 2 is from a simpler time when anybody could pick up a controller and do cool shit without fail. Your moveset is fairly straightforward. Each wrestler comes equipped with basic strikes by pressing the X button. If you press it more than once, you can do a quick combo. And depending on the wrestler, you'll do their signature combos, such as The Rock doing his triple punch. You press triangle to run, circle opens up your grapples depending on which direction you press, and whether it's a grapple or strike, the square button is your one size fits all for all things reversals. Each superstar comes with one trademark finishing move you must build towards by knocking the ever-living daylights out of your opponents. Once you store a finisher, you must put your opponent in a groggy state and then position yourself where the real-life wrestler would just to perform their move, and then hit R1 to witness low poly magic. Check this out as Eddie Guerrero hits his signature frog splash, or Stone Cold Steve Austin hits his famous Stone Cold Stunner in low poly perfection. What's weird though in SmackDown 2 is just how fast you and your opponents get up from devastating attacks. I mean, talk about no selling. What is this, Goldberg? Take the Tombstone Pile Driver, right? One of the most protected moves in all of professional wrestling. You can literally hit an opponent with one of these bad boys and they'll get up a mere few seconds later sometimes. It left me scratching my head like, what the hell's going on, ref? What the hell's with that bullshit 2 count? I swear that was a 3, ref. You really gotta lay this SmackDown if you want to keep an opponent down for more than a few seconds. On the bright side, you can get up fairly quickly as well and hedgehog roll around the ring to gain some distance. For a video game that's a quarter of a century old, it holds up fairly well for a fun time alone or with friends. What makes old WWE games such as SmackDown 2 worth returning to in the year of our Lord 2025 is that roster, man. I mean, it's unbeatable. You got Eddie Guerrero, Dean Malenko, you got Billy Gunn as an unlockable character along with Shawn Michaels. They even added some fun ones in there like Michael Cole, Pat Patterson. Like, they really just said f it and threw everybody in there. You got Road Dogg, Val Venus, China. Like, the list just goes on and on, dude. Unlike most other sports games, WWE is unmatched with its personalities that made the Attitude Era must-watch television. SmackDown 2 Know Your Role will always hold such a special piece in my heart. It isn't perfect, but if it isn't one of the most ridiculously addictive games of its time. Without it, I may not have become the die-hard wrestling fan I am today. This was truly a special trip down memory lane that I hope you all could enjoy. And if you could track down a copy, I'd say it's well worth your money, because like I said, the difference is, yes, the 2K games are much more well developed, but the thing is, if you just want to pick up and play arcadey style wrestling game with a roster that's just full of some of the best wrestlers of all time, some of the most legendary names of our time, then SmackDown 2 Know Your Role is still worth a pickup. Now, obviously, there's games like Here Comes the Pain and Shut Your Mouth, which drastically improved upon SmackDown 2. But if you just want something to reminisce from your childhood, have some of that PS1 charm, then I'd still say SmackDown 2 Know Your Role is still a worthy pickup. And guys, I just want to close out by saying pro wrestling means so much to me. I know this is a bit different than my standard content with a little bit more, towards Nintendo games, even more niche topics and things like that. But pro wrestling is such a huge part of my life, and I really wanted to share that with you guys with this video. I really hope you guys were able to get something out of this. Comment below as always. What is some of your favorite pro wrestling memories / memories related to video games in the world of pro wrestling? What was your first pro wrestling video game? Sound off below as always. And guys, I am almost to 500 subscribers as of the making of this video. I'm hoping to get to 500 by the end of the year so I could fully monetize this channel and really keep that train rolling with awesome content for you guys. So as always, like, comment, subscribe. You guys know what to do by now. You got the drill. And as always, just have yourselves a good one. Peace.